Hi, I think we should start now. We have a lot of attendees already. So, hello everyone, and welcome to Reimagine Growth Season 2, Episode 1. Hope you all are doing great. I am Ruchika Sharma, and I am the Customer Marketing Manager at CleverTap. We at CleverTap are always trying to bring in experts who can share their winning strategies with you all and help you learn and grow your business. If you have attended season one, then you would have met people from Apps Flyer, from Tata Click, Raymond, and Disney Hotstar. Those mobile experts shared their strategies around supercharging acquisition, fueling growth with analytics and segmentation, along with boosting retention. And at this episode, episode one of season two as well, we have mobile experts coming in from different brand. We have people from Google, from IMVU, Carousell, Branch, GrowthX, and CleverTap itself. We will be touching multiple topics. Mainly those topics would be around growth channels, the emerging growth channels for acquisition particularly, then finding the effective sync between content and analytics, and the third would be some insider tips that will help you supercharge your retention rates. So let's begin with our first episode of season two with customer acquisition as our focus. We all understand that customer acquisition is a must for any business. Any brand needs customer acquisition to remain relevant and to keep growing. But what happens a lot of time is we focus on acquisition and we forget about the retention part. And this results in high churn. What we need at this time is smart acquisition. And the entire episode one is about the smart acquisition approach. We have two amazing experts on our panel today who will be talking about these smart acquisition approaches. One, we have Aniket Sinha from Branch, who is the manager at India and SEA. Aniket has extensive experience across performance marketing, which helps him drive growth through customer acquisition. Then we have John from Carousell, John Huang. And John Huang is the regional CRM manager at Carousell. John has driven successful strategies which leads to improved customer experience, retention, and LTV. Aniket will be helping us with, by highlighting few top acquisition channels that drives real growth at this time. And John particularly will be showing us the beyond acquisition picture, the picture that really helps you ensure that while doing acquisition, you are focusing on retention. So at this point, I would request Aniket to take over and begin with the first topic.
Thank you, Ruchika. First of all, thank you to the whole CleverTap team to organize this and invite Branch and all of our partners here. Super excited to do this topic because this is, I think, one of the topics which are always evergreen. You go to any marketer and his top problem is, where do I find my customers and how do I spend my budget? So this is one of those topics, and it's always changing in today's world, right? And we're sitting in 2020, the year of changes. So we thought, why not give you guys insights into how these things are working right now with the top apps that are working with brands. So today we'll be speaking more on that. But before we go there, let me quickly start by doing a quick introduction on brands and also give you a bit of background about myself as well. So Branch, if you don't know, does mobile attribution and linking for your app and web. And our SDK runs through 50,000 of world's top apps. And the goal and the vision that our company has is majorly to make the app and web world as seamless as it used to be only on the web world earlier, right? So that's our mission. That's the goal that we keep in mind while solving any problem set through our product. And as a product, we kind of sit in center of so many things. So on this slide, you see there are your marketing channels, then there are your engagement channels, your analytics partners, right? And you see there is linking and attribution that we do across this, and also your CDP players. So we really sit in center of your mobile stack, So if you're today a marketer trying to promote your brand, it's very important that you have something like a branch in your system to help with your attribution and your linking across so many different platforms, connecting so many different your product stacks. So that's a bit about branch. Before we get into 2020 and the year of change, I'll say a few things of how I started in this industry, because that kind of puts some background into what we're going to go through in the next 20 minutes. So when I started at an agency in India, and we used to in the team look after maybe 50 to 60 different brands at that time. And whenever you go to that brand and you'd ask them, where do you want to spend your money, or this is where you want you to spend your money, it was a very simple decision because at that point of time, there were majorly two platforms which are ruling the world, which are still ruling the world, but things have changed. So you'd go there and tell them that you should do your search campaigns, and you should also do your social campaigns, and that's going to primarily do 90 to 95% of your acquisition. uh, After that, after my first stint at the agency, I moved to another agency which was in Southeast Asia, and there I found that this was even more prevalent over there because social platforms are more popular. So all the marketers are spending most of their budgets into very few channels, right? And that kind of reflected the way users have been using platforms. So if you look 5 to 6 years back, most of your time on your mobile phone would be spent majorly into your social apps like Facebook, like Instagram, or apps like Google Search or Google product of apps, right? But that has kind of changed now. Users, first of all, have not only been using these products, but they have a plethora of options. They are engaging with so many different apps, OTTs, be it your phone apps, be it your social short video apps. So those have kind of changed, and we'll see how you should kind of tackle that and be there for your customers, because wherever your users are, is where you need to be to acquire users, right? Simple as that. So 2020 again, obviously, it's a no-brainer. It's been a year of changes, and this is one very insightful slide that we always like to present. If you see pre-COVID, obviously things were normal. You see the blue line of ads jumping up as usual and going um, to hit the next milestone. But as soon as we hit the COVID era, as soon as we got into the pandemic, you see ads saw a huge decline into user acquisition. And you see all these organic channels like web to app, like your email, social, all took a very good rise, and people started focusing on these channels because of the way user behavior changed, and also because of the way budgets changed globally around at that time. But now we're returning to mean. You see ads again picking up. You see the social surge that was there is now again coming down. And we'll talk a bit more on how these um, channels dive into. But this is a good kind of a realization that you can do over the course of 10 or 9 months that we are already into 2020. Now, speaking about acquisition in particular, doing your digital marketing campaigns, it's an infinite game, right? It's not like I do these two things and my job is done. You have to keep on doing things, and there's so much to do that you can keep doing, and the strategies will keep changing. We have put across two acquisition brands. One are your top of the funnel brands who have already acquired a lot of users and are just looking for incremental growth. And the right side is your growth apps, which are looking for growth at a very exponential levels, building their platform right from scratch maybe. And the interesting part to note is that there was one myth that I wanted to bust, that it's not only when your traditional channels get very expensive, is when you have to look out for new channels. Right now, the way we see the brands that we work with, they are exploring new channels right from the word go. It's not that you choose your traditional channels, and the reason behind that is the user graph has changed. It's not just tier one users right now. It's not just metro users. The users have gone into tier two cities, tier three cities, and also their attention span has gone into so many different apps. And that's how you have to look at things, and that's why you need to focus on more channels. And when I say a brand is using 8 to 10 different channels, um, What I mean to say is they're using them um, for about 5% of their revenue. So it's not just a very small portion. And if I tell you more about these kind of platforms, what you need to see is, your social channels, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok of the world are there, but there are new and upcoming social media channels that also you need to take care of. You know about search, that's pretty standard, but now you need to look at some other parts of the channels like your OTT space. There are so many OTT players in the market. Everybody has an um, ad system, a lot of work on the AVOD model, which is the advertising video on demand. So you need to talk to them, you need to work with them to grab a share of of the users, right? And you yourself can look at your own time, and you'll see you're spending so much time into the OTT world or into the short format videos. And then you also have your OEM channels. So there are a lot of networks today who work with your smartphone manufacturers, and those are like Samsung, Xiaomi's of the world. I need to work with them because they give you growth which you can never imagine, because you can have those apps built in into the phone, and you can just activate them through a remarketing channel. You need to work with those players. And also there are apps or recommended apps today in so many of these phones, and those slots are available for you to advertise on. And then you have your affiliate side of business, and there are so many ad networks um, who do that, and you should always keep that option open because that's a very flexible option for your scale. So you can mix and match everything, and obviously programmatic advertising or display channels are there. You need to mix and match all these things more than ever today because the users are there on every platform. So that's your paid side, and that's the main um, insight that I wanted to derive was that it's no longer marketing strategy that you have to work with only two networks, and that's where you will get all the users from. What we are seeing through all our top apps, they're invested in at least 10 or 8 channels at one point of time for their growth, which is significant to their business. So that's the paid side of things. But a lot of you here might be wondering, how do I organically, increase my user acquisition? What are those things that I need to do that can save me budget and also give me acquisition growth and all those sort of things? So did the same kind of division. Here, obviously, the story is slightly different because a growth brand will not have a lot of organic presence. So they might have lesser channels, but a top brand today has at least 4 to 6 channels that are using organically for for their growth. And these channels, again, if I have to specify, you might know a few of them like SEO, like ASO, App Store optimization. The ones that probably people are mostly unaware of are your web to app channels. So you have so much traffic on your website. Let's say you are an app who has always been heavy um, on your website because that was the first platform that you acquired user for. So now when you start your app strategy, a lot of times what people do is just start their app install campaigns, which is a very, I would say, inefficient way of starting a campaign because you have so many users that you've acquired through so many years on a website. Why don't you first ask them to take the app? And then once that pool is over is when you can go towards your paid acquisition. So that's a very important channel that I like to highlight that you can leverage. App to app is another strategy that we see being used so many times, and you must be making so many partnerships in the industry. Let's say you are a rental car company and you're partnering with a food provider, or let's say you are a recipe app which is combining with your app delivery app, right? So you can do so many app to app growth use cases, and we'll speak to you about how a lot of brands are doing this. Obviously, your SMS emails is something that you need to keep on doing. One very important thing over here is to measure these channels, because what happens is you'd mostly be doing a lot of measurement along your paid side, but your organic side kind of loses out on a lot of measurement, because of which you're not able to justify a lot of efforts. So make sure that you're measuring each and every channel that you're doing, each and every user that comes to your website or your app. You have a definitive way of defining where this user came from. So once you do that on your organic side as well, is when you'll be able to scale up so many different channels, and you'll unlock so many different growth channels for yourself. So now that was a bit that I had on organic and paid side. I'll get into the brands that are doing this. There are various examples. John later will be speaking on Carousell and how they have been leveraging so many different brands to so many different ways to onboard users through deep linking, therefore deep linking. But I have some other brands here to kind of highlight that were open to sharing this data with you. So first of all, like I said, web to app conversions. So many app users can be acquired through your web platform itself. And all you need to do for that is use banners on top of your website and take the user to the app. Give them a very nice offer, like go to the app and you'll get 20% off, something like that. But the problem here is that whenever you want to do this, you'll have to go to your tech team. You'll have to tell them, why don't you put this banner from tomorrow night? And they'll say, oh, that's too less time. Um, we can only do it by next Monday, let's say. So you want a tool, first of all, which can help you put a banner on top of your website anytime you want. You want to be able to A/B test that platform. Let's say you have 20% off, you have 10% off, or you have different colors of banners or different size of banners. These are different examples of different banners, like a full page banner, interstitial, or just a top banner. Right? And I'll show you one example from LBB app, which uses branch. So what they do is they overlay different kind of these banners on the website to acquire users. And what it does is it takes them to the app, obviously, but it also defer deep link them into the app. For example, if you're looking at, let's say, live event, or let's say a concert by Arijit Singh, you then get a banner, you click on that, you go to the Play Store or the App Store, you open the app, and um, you go to the Arijit Singh concert page again. So that's the kind of experience that you want to drive, and that's how you acquire so many users. Also, let's say if you're running a lot of web campaigns still, it's a very good hack to kind of get your app users directly from your web users. So you'll get people to your website and using a banner, then move them to the app. So you're not doing an app install campaign. You're doing a web campaign, which is much cheaper, but you're getting the same result. Um, and the more advanced banners you use, that's what we have seen through our product adoption, is the more banners and the more customization you use, the more click-to rate or view-through rates you get on branch. Then also using QR codes, like I said, measuring your organic channels is very important. Using QR codes across different platforms like web to app, desktop to app, or using an SMS link to measure your users who come from your desktop. This is an example from Optus in Australia. I'm using this on branch. Sing Life, using us with the celebrities and the banners, using to measure your effectiveness of these banners so they can scale them up as well. App to app sharing, like I was saying, we have so many apps who would want to partner with you because both of you kind of have the same customers. So you want to work with them and ask them to kind of help you promote your app within their users base. So you should obviously do it, but you should do it very smartly, and you should do it in a way that you're able to measure those things. So this is an integration between a shopping list app and a marketplace. So let's say you are making a dish and you had 4 or 5 different um, ingredients that list gives you. And simply click on the button that I want to buy these products. And you directly go into Instacart, for example, here, and all those things are automatically added to cart, and you just need to check out. So these are the kind of experiences will help you not only get growth, but get growth which will help you for long term. Emails are a very traditional channel, but if you have a set of email users, you should definitely use it. Try to extract most of it, and obviously, like I said, measure that performance. Make sure that experience for the user is seamless. They go directly inside the app. Referrals is also a very great hack that's been in the market for a long time, but the way you do it has kind of become very sophisticated. Today, when I get a referral SMS or a referral WhatsApp from someone, it is very contextual. And as soon as I click on the link, I go to the app opens up, and the referral is already applied on my page. So I don't have to type in the code or do any sort of those things. And if you look at that at a scale, it really works. And that's what gives the end user also so much value. So instead of putting so much money and giving it to so many different platforms, you give those benefits back to the users. So let's say if you have an acquisition cost of $5, why don't you just use that $5 as a referral fee and give it back to your customers? So that's the way you should think about it. And you should do products which kind of elevate the user experience. For example, your Shopback is using a very contextual way of inviting someone, and they're using branch links here, as you can see. And once you click on that branch link, you go to the Play Store, you install it, and the referral coupon is still applied after the Play Store install is done. A few more points about SEO. So when you're doing SEO, just doing keywords in your app is no longer enough. What you need to do is think of topics and think how the user intent is. For example, I was working at Flyrobe before Branch, which was a rental company, and we used to rent out occasional wear. And what we would do is for a SEO strategy, obviously keywords like lehenga or sherwani or suits were good, but 100 styles of sherwani, top 100 styles um, of lehengas was what we used to insert in our blogs, and that used to help us really improve our SEO ranking. So you have to think of SEO less keyword, more of what users are intending to be. And then obviously app store optimization. It's such a complicated word. If you go and search Ludo on Play Store, or you search for PUBG on Play Store, uh, you're sure that there are 100 other apps that are getting listed. How do you make sure that your app is highlighted amongst them, looks good, and delivers the right messaging? So you need to take care of all the terms that are being used in that small messaging space that you have. Also, you need to invest into how the banners are looking. For example, you want to showcase whatever the app looks like inside from your Play Store or the App Store itself, so the user is kind of aware of what they're getting into. So that was my bit on acquisition strategies. I hope that was helpful to some of you, and you'd want to go ahead and implement it. If you have any questions at any point of time, you can reach to me at aniket@branch.io. And with that, I'll give it back to Ruchika.
Thank you so much, Aniket. That was really an amazing session. I really enjoyed a few parts, particularly. I was actually making my notes. It's really crazy how brands are using 10 different channels and from like traditional channels and still exploring new channels. I can only imagine how difficult the job of a growth marketer is. Another point that I really found interesting, and I completely agree with, that organic is really becoming important right now. And organic is not just about SEO, it's about a lot more. So at this point, while you have shared a lot, I would want and request the audience to share something with us. There's a poll that's flashing on your screen right now. I would request you all to take a minute and just do this quick survey, very few questions. And we are going to use the results of this survey in the Reimagine ebook that we are planning to publish. It will be shared with all of you. So please, everyone, just take a minute and do the survey. While you're doing the survey, actually, I would like to share some results from our previous survey. We did a similar survey some time back with CXOs in Southeast Asia, and we got some very interesting results. Let me just pull in those results and share it with you. So we got to know that 70% of the CXO responded customer loyalty, referrals, cross-sell, and upsells as a top priority for 2021. Another thing that we found out was that over 90% of CXO concentrate on high level of personalization pertaining to engaging content for their mobile users. So pretty interesting. And we are hoping to get such similar insights from this survey as well, which you growth marketers will be responding to. Okay, so I'll just move on. So now that we have got a okay, so now that we have got a clear picture about the kind of app acquisition channels being used by a lot of brands to drive growth, and I mentioned that John will be highlighting the beyond acquisition picture for us. I would request John to like help us understand how brands are, while acquiring new users, ensuring that the LTV is high and the ROI is high. Over to you, John.
Hey guys, thank you Ruchika for your kind introduction. So a big hello to everyone who's made the time to join us this afternoon. So once again, I'm John, Regional CRM Manager at Carousell. A short introduction of myself. I'm based in Singapore and I've been working in the CRM domain for a number of years now. And I take pride in being both a CRM business leader and also a CRM practitioner. So where business leadership goes, my expertise and experience lie in tackling business objectives that surround the known user of a company. And I'm extremely passionate about the process of customer journey mapping, where we first understand the different experience flows that a customer may possibly go through along the purchase cycle, as well as an entire life cycle, so as to cater for relevant and engaging touch points along the journey with the objectives of increasing customer retention, share of wallet, and ultimately lifetime value. And also as a CRM practitioner, I constantly keep myself up to date with technologies and automation processes that can power the customer journey that I love to map out, with the objective of running different journeys across multiple channels in a seamless and also scalable fashion. And it is on this note that I feel very privileged to be part of today's session, also as a proud partner of both CleverTap and Branch. So my introduction has focused on the key themes of customer journey, retention, and lifetime value, which begs the question then, why is John speaking in a session for acquisition? So I'd like to just bring you guys over this point, which is in recent years, the growth and digital marketing worlds have evolved in that increasingly, the lines between acquisition and retention are getting blurred. So beyond sign up or first purchase, a customer can potentially be exposed to different messages across different channels, either paid or organic, with the intention of onboarding, reactivating, upselling, and also cross-selling. So the perspective to me that I believe should be adopted by most of you also is that the perspective of acquisition should no longer be limited to just acquiring to one's business, but instead it will be more meaningful when viewed as acquisition across different categories or product lines within a business. And adopting such a perspective will be meaningful to businesses with large inventories, such as the likes of e-commerce, online grocery platforms, fashion, and many more. And similarly, as Carousell is an online classifieds marketplace powered by user-generated listings and driven by people-to-people transactions, such a perspective is fitting, as I will share the Carousell story on how we continue to win users over and again with cross-category acquisition. So first, here's an introduction of Carousell, especially to you who have joined from outside the region. Carousell is an online classifieds marketplace that makes selling as easy as taking a photo and buying as simple as chatting. And the idea really was born out of a need that the founders faced, which was that they were holding on to so much stuff, gadgets and the like. And they really desired a solution where they could declutter easily onto the hands of someone who would find more meaning in the item and also give them a new lease of life. The Carousell experience is one that's entirely social, which is why our product focuses heavily on the ease of use. You see over there, snap, list, and sell, safe communication within the app, being photo-centric, and also powering on the social aspect of people-to-people transactions. And on to the next slide. Here's a timeline of Carousell's 8-year history in becoming Southeast Asia's #1 classifieds marketplace. We were founded in Singapore in 2012 and focus on internationalization of the app and marketplace over the next immediate few years. And starting just in 2017, we stepped up our focus on verticalization and also monetization of business alongside M&As that led to a stronger Carousell group. And most recently, if you caught the news last week, we just announced a 80 million investment by a consortium led by Naver. On to the next slide. And today, in a snapshot, Carousell has presence in 8 markets with over 250 million user listings on our platform. But our mission, as you can see on the next slide, remains in that we humbly wish to inspire every person in the world to start selling and buying, because through every buyer, seller, and listing, we believe there's a story beyond the transaction, and we believe in the power of possibilities that people bring to the process, especially when it happens on a global scale. So with this introduction of Carousell and with a better understanding of who I am, I wish to bridge that to me and my team's mandate of driving customer retention and cross-category acquisition here at Carousell. So on to the next slide. The role of CRM at Carousell is manifested across 3 aspects. So firstly, CRM channels like push and email are a key driver of organic and targeted user traffic onto the app. So we aim to achieve business objectives surrounding the known user in times when they are off the app, on a few levels. Firstly, on a transactional level. So how do we use CRM channels to guide and move the user along the funnel towards completion, towards a purchase? And also on a user level, how do we keep getting the user to come back? And alongside that, how do we keep on encouraging users to discover other categories that we have while they do? So the CRM team over at Carousell do so by creating a consistent 1:1 customer experience that is sufficient, so no gaps in the experience, relevant, and also humanized to ensure a good experience that's as automated as possible. And in doing so, we also ensure that the touchpoints we surface address various lifecycle objectives for the user. On to the next slide. So delving deeper into the importance of developing a 1:1 customer experience, which underscores the objectives of engaging the customer journey and then acquiring for affinity categories. On to the next slide. So looking at this chart, we acknowledge that no 2 users of Carousell are the same, but a sound approach that would work for all businesses is to first identify pertinent customer personas or customer clusters among your existing users, which in the case of Carousell, for instance, a fashion category buyer, a user who is looking to buy a used car on the platform, or just a user who is in need of emergency plumbing services. So first, identify your pertinent customer personas. And following that, as a team, and here it's beneficial that be it you doing it in your company or me doing it in my company, it is beneficial to welcome a diverse mix of perspectives. So people from marketing, people from growth, people from engineering, to embark on an exercise to map out the user journey of these pertinent customer personas from end to end. So for example, as the user is browsing on your platform, what might be some motivation behind him or her browsing, and what are some options available today. And in the case of Carousell, as they chat with a seller, what are some common actions that are undertaken today on the app, or questions that the user might have that we are not solving for right now. And moving on to the outcomes of the transaction, regardless of whether it's a good or bad outcome, what might be some gaps that we can address with a focus on customer empathy? And of course, post-transaction, what might be some cross-category opportunities that we can explore, such that the user can keep on coming back along his or her entire life cycle, from an electronics buyer on to buying your first second-hand car and on to sourcing for your first piece of property. Such exercises of customer journey mapping will require time and effort for consideration, debate, and also prioritization. However, when done right, it will set your strategy apart in that you start to develop a view of what you have as is versus to be of the states of the customer journey and work to develop and optimize along the way. And on to the next slide. Regardless of how diverse or complex your business is, there's no persona better to kickstart this mapping exercise than the new customer. Because as we know, acquisition doesn't end with a sign up or first purchase, but rather it should extend to the point where a customer is convinced and can comfortably navigate through your product. And since there is no foolproof way to determine at which point is a customer fully convinced and comfortable, our best bet here is to provide a strong post-acquisition onboarding experience in order to avoid the commonly quoted statistic of having to spend 7 times as much to acquire a new customer than to retain an existing one from ringing in our heads. So on to the next slide, I'll be sharing the journey mapping for Carousell's new user onboarding that's been recently revamped, and where I hope my sharing can inspire you to kickstart your first customer journey mapping exercise, or to spark exchanges with you in how I can make this onboarding process a better one. So as an introduction, Carousell's onboarding journey is a form of new user onboarding that takes place off the app via CRM channels like push and email in their first 14 days as a user. And so as you can see on screen, this user is made up of different cards. Each card represents exactly a communication touch point, which is either a push or email. And you'll notice that the cards are color-coded, as each touch point that we have planned is meant to address a particular life cycle objective, such as onboarding, discovery, and engagement. And so in a snapshot over here, you can see that the first 7 days of a new user onboarding at Carousell is focused heavily on onboarding and also user discovery of the platform. The new user's journey starts off with a welcome communication on how to use the app, broad benefits of buying and selling on Carousell and what to expect next. And next up, with a touch point on how to sell on the platform, followed by buying tips and a call out for users to complete and a chance to get incentivized for completing the interest category section on the app. And this is important because it's also where we can proactively start collecting data points on user interest, which will become a form of hard segmentation that we can action upon subsequently. And if the user does fill up the interest category section, anytime starting from day 4, the user will receive an incentive alongside personalized recommendations 1 day after completing the survey. And moving on day 7, new users will also be urged to discover what are some trending items among fellow Carousellers in their country as a form of social proof, to let them know that they are not alone and that their choice of using the platform is the right one. And moving on to the next slide, into the second week, on day 8, the user will be put through an engagement piece, because Carousell, after all, is a buy and sell platform. An engagement piece to encourage their first listing in exchange for a chance to win a prize and get their listing featured in a curated collection on the app, with a reminder powered 3 days later to remind on this engagement piece while they're still on the platform. And finally, on the 2-week day 14 mark, new users will now be urged to discover what are some trending categories in their market. We put in a lot of effort into enhancing our onboarding experience with an objective to complement the on-app onboarding experience, as well as to enrich the user with educational pieces and a sense of discovery, because the user might otherwise be feeling lost at this stage, feeling lost at navigating the app. So our intent is to make the user and its usage comfortable, not just at onset, but also subsequently throughout the user's life cycle. So that's my sharing for what we have done for onboarding, but what's beyond a good onboarding experience. So a little bit of explanation here. Businesses today hardly sell one product. And so on top of the product market fit that may already exist for one user, oftentimes businesses have to make a coordinated effort to identify and also funnel users from affinity categories, meaning categories where there are obvious signs of overlaps in customer segments, as either told by existing data overlaps or through sound projections. And in doing so, to demonstrate to this potential user, hey, come check out this category that other people like yourself are also enjoying. So needless to say, in a classifieds marketplace like Carousell, where listings and users are ranging, so international, such affinity connections that can and should be drawn. And this underscores a key strategy of ours for cross-category acquisition, which intends to widen the breadth of one's exposure to the different categories on the platform. And on to the next slide. With the main objective of cross-category acquisition, many of such category pairs can be drawn. Some are more obvious. So for example, cars and car servicing, buying a furniture and requiring a mover to deliver your furniture. Some, however, touch on the more psychographical nature of a user, such as one being in parenthood and the need for a car. And this is the first of 2 cross-category examples that I wanted to share today. On to the next slide. So a common insight that we have on car buyers, regardless in Singapore or across the world, is that the purchase cycle is often one that is long-ranging, where typically it can take up to a few months just to shortlist, test drive the different models, and also decide on the one car that you like. And at the same time, we also know that one's purchase decision ties in strongly with a user's life stage and also aspirations, especially in the stage of parenthood, where the purchase cycle will inadvertently be compressed due to the need that comes with it, which is why for such parenthood segments, we have developed journeys that aim to provide sufficient education and discovery touchpoints for parents or parents-to-be, in having them be aware that they are not alone and that the Carousell platform has both a strong marketplace of family cars available and also educational materials in helping them make the correct decisions should they show enough intent. So as you can see on screen, putting this into action, using the example for parenthood, where we reach out to users proactively with intent in our babies and kids category. And we do so not just for parenthood psychographic segments, but also by developing proxies of other life stages and aspirations such that we can not only be funneling them into the car buyer journey, but also to be putting them into an educational flow that will be more contextualized to their stage of life, thereby reaching out to them with more relevancy. And on to the next slide, the other cross-category example that I wanted to share today is an interesting one about services. So when I say services, think home repairs, plumbing, or locksmith services. So if cross-category acquisition is based purely on user data, on overlaps in customer segments, then there's a likely chance that most of our users are going to miss out on this opportunity, because services is interesting in that the nature of service engagements are reactionary and hardly pre-planned. And on this note, the nuanced point to services is that cross-category acquisition can be done, but it has to take the form of building awareness even before an actual need for a service arises. So on to the next slide. Putting this into action once again, you can see that the plan is to be setting up campaigns for users in affinity categories. For example, furniture, home appliances like your refrigerators, property, such that we can leverage intent on these affinity categories through the use of a top-down banner within the same session, or post a search or transaction that has happened in an affinity category via a time trigger. So that's my final example for today. And on to the next slide. And hopefully that has sparked some inspiration and also exchanges that we might have subsequently. But I guess underlying these examples, the biggest takeaway that I hope to impart you with is how a shift in thinking, planning, and executing your campaigns against a customer journey approach can make a true difference to the user and also to your results. So on the left side of the screen, so most of us marketers would be used to what I consider to be a campaign approach, where we set up seasonal campaigns or behavioral nudges separately, campaign by campaign. While there's nothing wrong with doing so, oftentimes from my reflection, my takeaway is that there is no concerted effort to string the different messages together for a consistent user experience that can be guided by both actions or time triggers in reality. And also on the deliverability side of things, when you set features such as a global rate limit on a platform like CleverTap, that may inadvertently impact the deliverability of some messages over the other. But however, if you were to take a customer journey approach, where you plan out a series of messages that are triggered based on action or based on time delays, we can be sure that what users now see are contextualized to their specific customer personas as a fashion buyer or as a car buyer. And in terms of setup, as they are being set up as a journey, and in my case as a journey on CleverTap, we are in a better position to ensure a consistent messaging experience from entry to completion, thereby ensuring greater success across the different life cycle stages, regardless it's acquisition, retention, reactivation, or even cross-selling. And so with that, I've come to the end of my sharing today, and I would like to thank all of you for the opportunity to share. It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. That was really wonderful. And definitely it's not a campaign approach anymore. It's about customer mapping, and that should start with new user and not later on. I really loved how you explain your approach in terms of doing product recommendation, like day 1 to day 14, you have the entire flow. That's really inspiring. And I'm sure our audience is going to get inspired and learn a lot from that. So it's a must to identify experience gaps and opportunities that that help you focus on empathy, and that can happen when you have a customer mapping in place. So brilliant. So this brings us to our Q&A session. If you haven't dropped in your questions already, it's the right time, and our speakers will take it up. So Aniket, John, please address the questions.
I can take the first question that's open right now, posted by Kaylee. So, hi John, what are the areas you will consider when it comes to mapping customer journey for different personas? So, there is no right and wrong answer, but typically how we do it is to really pull together not just members of the CRM team or marketing team, but also people from adjacent departments come together and put ourselves in the shoes of this particular customer persona. So for instance, on the Carousell marketplace, let's say the fashion buyer. So when we put ourselves in the shoes of fashion buyer, so then we think when it comes to fashion, what kind of subcategories that can possibly come within? Is it like dresses? Is it shoes? Is it jeans? And when as a buyer, when I come to the platform, what might be some of my motivations? Could I be looking for something that is already off season but still very desirable? Or is it something that is in season but you don't mind it to be a second-hand piece so you can get it off at a steal? So really with this motivation in mind, that are more often than not qualitative in nature to begin with, then we'll map out what are some things that will be meaningful in helping guide this user along the entire purchase funnel. So for instance, going back to the example of a fashion buyer, could it be relevant prompts and nudges on how the Carousell platform is also guarded by a lot of user reviews? So it's P2P, and at the same time, the reputation and the experience is also made up by past people who have transacted on our platform. So with this, should we be highlighting the importance of user reviews to this potential fashion buyer? And how about educational piece? So luxury is one of the key categories on platform. So how do we really ease the user of any concerns when it comes to authenticity on the platform? So educational pieces that can give people tips and tricks in helping to vet the authenticity of a potential piece that you're buying. So that is typically the approach that we take persona to persona, but also from another perspective, which is more of a life cycle perspective, we try to ensure that with each customer journey that we have met, we do have a sufficient split across different life cycle objectives. Do we have some that's catered for the education? Do we have some there's a form of abandonment nudges that can just prompt you to buy? Or some that are just purely out of engagement, like a contest? So typically we use two approach, one more qualitative one, and then another one to check it against our life cycle framework. Yep, I hope that I've answered your question, Kaylee. And I'm seeing that the next question comes from Abigail Kaur. How do you decide that the onboarding stage should last 3 days and discovery should start on day 4? So this is a mixture of both intuition as a marketer, I would say, and also backed by some data that we have collected over the years. So safe to say, prior to revamping this onboarding journey, we had an onboarding journey in place, but that wasn't as fully fleshed out as this one. So with that said, data from past behavior is one source of truth that we can relate to. Another one would also be just by, once again, although it sounds qualitative, once again, putting yourself in the shoes of a new user on the platform. What might be a good pace and cadence that you would like to expect communications coming your way after joining? That's one. And also alongside the cadence is what should be in the packets of information that come your way that can be useful as you navigate the app or navigate whatever business that you're operating in. And lastly, also today, thanks to the internet, there is also countless best practices and good examples of how other companies do their onboarding journey. So it's just multiple sources that we refer to. And at the same time, whatever that we have put out there is never final. It will go through several iterations to become better, either in terms of the time triggers in between, in terms of adding or reducing number of touch points. So these are things that time will only tell.
Thank you, John. Aniket, would you like to take up a couple of questions?
Yes. I think we've answered some on the chat itself, but I think it's worth going again on audio. So I think there's a question on how important are discounts as a lever when acquiring new customers. My take on this, and from my previous experiences, is that doing analysis of your funnels, like if place a pixel or place a event at every important step, like for example, add to cart is an important step and purchase is an important step, but between add to cart and purchase there are so many tabs and all those tabs are so important. So for example, entering an add to cart button, to entering the address, to entering the coupon code, right? Put an event behind that. See the drop off. If you see the drop off is huge between add to cart page view to address, that means pricing is a problem. And that's why you need to solve it either by coupon or either by doing a discount on your page, right? So I would say look at that data and put those coupons in the market and again test it, right? Has that funnel improved? If it has improved, you've got your answer, right? So I would take that approach. John, anything from your end to add on to that question?
Oh, that's a sound approach you have just mentioned.
All right. And then I think there was another question on um, from Pat saying that, there's a client in Vietnam who has seen humongous growth on TikTok. And do you recommend using such channels? And the simplest answer is wherever the users are, you have to be there as advertisers. So uh, and all these platforms that are there today, they offer you self-serve platforms. So you did not think, but should I do this, should I not? Just put a small budget, run the campaign and see it for yourself. And what we have seen amongst our set of common customers is that it's no longer a two-channel game. It's definitely more than that. How many depends entirely on your product, what you're promoting. So a lot of A/B testing, but yeah, there are more options, and the quality of growth is also very good from these other channels. So worth checking them out, worth testing them out. All right.
Thanks, Aniket. So this brings us to the end of our session. So I'll take this opportunity to thank John and Aniket again for sharing these insights and taking out the time to give this session actually. I hope for the audience that you all were able to understand what this entire smart customer acquisition is all about. And just a little sneak peek for tomorrow's session before we log off. If you are a business who's struggling with creating your engagement framework, you wouldn't want to miss tomorrow's session because tomorrow we have Udyan from GrowthX and he'll help you create your engagement framework on the go during the session itself. It's going to be super interactive. So you can participate and you can also find answer to your one core engagement challenge during the session. So please don't miss out on that. So that's it. Thank you so much, everyone. You guys have been an amazing audience. And thank you again to John and Aniket. You guys have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Ruchika. Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you for
joining.
having us. Thank you, everyone. See you.